What is up, everybody? Welcome to the PGA DFS First Look Show for gotta look at the name here, the Workday Charity Open. This is the tournament that was kind of just thrown on the schedule by the PGA Tour after the one near and dear to most of our hearts, the John Deere Classic, was canceled. Don't worry, we're going to get it back next year, so don't have any concerns there. We're only going to have to go 1 year without our favorite tournament. But before we head into the Workday Charity Open and find out about this field and everything else you'll need to know for the week, I'm going to bring in my co-host for the Monday show, Sal Vitri and Geoff Ulrich here. Geoff, did I say that last name right? I apologize if I said it wrong.
It's Ulrich, but it's not a big deal. I mean, I've heard numerous pronunciations at this point in my life.
So that's not too bad.
Whatever you feel better.
Yeah. So, Geoff, how was your weekend? Did you get anything good across the line?
No, not really. I mean, it was one of those weeks where at the start, I just didn't really feel like going 100% Bryson or going like a big fade of him either and just playing my normal amount and doing either or. I just felt it was such a crazy week where you're probably going to have a lot of him or none of him. And I just went with a couple small lineups with none of Bryson and, ended up as a small losing week. It kind of felt like a win though, because I did make the decision to cut back a bit. So, it ended up being a bit of a crazy week too, from a player perspective, guys who were up there just out of the blue. So kind of just happy with myself. I made that decision, but I obviously for the people who went all in on Bryson, for most of them, excluding you maybe, Jason, it was a good week. So
yeah, we'll definitely get into that in a little bit in the Millionaire Maker lineup review. Sal, how about you? Well, what did you do with Bryson? Did you take the all-in approach or did you take the play the fade approach?
Yeah, in like 20 max, and then I didn't go full 150, but like putting like 70 lineups into a couple of those. I went pretty much all in on Bryson, and that turned out fine, but nothing popped off enough to make it worth it. Like the full 4-day was just pretty much washed. I didn't go to Bryson in like some of the higher stakes stuff, like single entry and 3 max, try to get away from it there. And that's where it really bit me. I think it would have paid off if he just didn't play as he's been playing so dominantly. But the thing that did stand out, and it's been like two and a half weeks in a row since I started doing this, I started paying and focusing a lot more on Showdown, like week to week, and just really kind of just flip-flopping performances from the day before. And at least in a small sample, that's been doing good. So that made me make up some of it, but it was still like a 33 or something % loss week on DraftKings. And then I think I hit like 2 top 20 bets, but the outrights were just all none. I didn't have any Bryson. I didn't want to buy the short odds.
Yeah, it's always tough, especially in golf betting, to look at it and say, hey, 6-1, that's I'm never going to bet that. And that's kind of what happens in golf betting, of course. So before we go on here, I want to thank SuperDraft, our sponsor for the show. And of course, if you haven't played over there, it would have been a good week to do so. There were some definitely high leverage guys in their multiplier segment that went off. So the future of daily fantasy sports has arrived. If you haven't played the multiplier game mode, you got to go check it out. You get to say goodbye to salary restrictions and hello to lineup freedom. Use your fantasy sports knowledge to draft your very own dream team. So for this week, for me, Cantlay, Spieth, Morikawa, I can get them all in there. I don't have to worry about salary restrictions. Countless lineup possibilities let you experience daily fantasy sports the way you want. SuperDraft offers contests right now for PGA, NASCAR, MMA, so you can enjoy the best of DFS all year round, especially when NFL and NBA come back. Sign up for SuperDraft today using promo code Awesemo10, and it's $10 free on your first deposit of 10 or more, and 20 total free on your first deposit of 100 or more. Download, of course, in the App Store or play on superdraft.io. No limits, more winning. We always like that. So let's go on to Bryson Bombs and the Wolf Howls. Now, I want to bring up 2 things. First thing about Bryson is what he's doing. It's fantastic. And what we saw this week was him win, and then all of his odds for the majors, he's the top of the board now. 10-1 almost everywhere. And you look and you say, okay, well, what's going to stop him from doing the same thing at majors, right? And so I did a little comparison. The rough at Detroit Golf Club was 3.5 inches last week. The rough at Shinnecock Hills, for comparison, was only 4 inches, only about a half an inch longer. How are they going to be able to stop Bryson? For example, we got TPC Harding coming up in a month. It almost sets up very similar in terms of yardage to Detroit Golf Club. He's going to have like 8 wedges in. It doesn't matter how long they make the rough. So, Geoff, I'm going to start with you. I think maybe you actually placed some bets on Bryson before him winning on the futures. Are you selling those now, or are you going to hold on to those, or can you even sell them? I know some sites allow you to cash out, but I mean, it's looking like he could legitimately win a good amount of them now.
Yeah, I mean, look, the sites don't really give you good odds at this point to cash out, so there's no way I'm cashing those out. I hit Bryson in the middle of the RBC at 25-1, just because it was becoming painfully obvious that he was going to drift under 20 for sure. And I wasn't sure if he'd get this low, but obviously with the win he has, where he's either second favorite now. I think he's around, the best he can get him is like 12-1. For the PGA Championship. But I agree 100%. And this is why, it was right then I started to do some research into TPC Harding Park too. There's not a whole lot of dog legs on TPC Harding Park. It's maybe a little bit like of a narrower course than Detroit, but it doesn't even look like it's going to be that big a deal. There's no water on the course, much like Detroit. I think he's just going to be able to bomb it on most of these longer par fours. And who cares if he gets in the rough? The guy's a behemoth anyways, as we saw. He's going to be so close to the green. So I'm very confident with Bryson with the PGA right now. I think I have a little bit more trepidation with the US Open because the green speed there can get so quick. And we've seen him at the US Open complain a little bit. So that would be the one event of the three where I kind of have some trepidation with Bryson, but I really like him for the PGA Championship.
Yeah, Winged Foot is no slouch. That's where they're playing the US Open this year, if you haven't looked ahead forward. And again, they could put the rough up to 5 inches there, and maybe it will. I do see him having a little bit more trouble at US Open because their rough is, especially where they've been playing it, is fescue rough, which is a lot harder to hit out of than what we saw this past week of the Kikuyu, or I think it was Kentucky Bluegrass actually was the rough this week. Anyways, regardless, Sal, what do you make of it? Did you hit him before the win on these majors, or should we just crown him the champion now?
No, I didn't hit him before, unfortunately, and I'm definitely not at this point. This is, you're buying that, and maybe you're not buying the peak price. Maybe it gets into single digits at some point, but a week of maybe. But I think at this point he's definitely going to compete from everything we've been seeing, unless some sort of injury, or honestly he just gets in his own head. There's times where he can chat himself up at that point. But yeah, I think it's just he's gonna be there. He's gonna be competing, and it'll just amount to the pressure at that point. He's been able to handle it. He just showed us on Sunday that he definitely can handle it and did it without any blunders at all. So it was an easy course. We'll see once we start getting some more difficult courses. Like this was the first course that he can actually open it up, take out driver a bunch more, but it was also and he's going to get it again if he was here this week, I guess. But it's just such an easy course to hit fairways last week. So what happens once it becomes a little bit more difficult? I guess that's the last challenge to see, because if anything, maybe the around the green play, you kind of say, okay, that can get him, but he doesn't have to rely on that because he's getting there and he's just getting on in his second shot. So yeah, I think just somebody's going to have to outduel him more. Just see if there's a more difficult course that's longer.
Yeah, it's funny. He actually caused some problems within the statistical category this week because his approach game was actually turning into what's classified as around the green game. So he didn't even have an approach game. Very weird how those stats work and how to look into, and something to maybe to monitor a little bit going forward for Bryson. You brought up, though, he played pretty good. It was an easy course. But he even said it was probably his B game or B plus game. And Matt Wolff was kind of able to keep up with it for the most part. Had some missed putts coming down there on 18. What do you make of, though, of Matt Wolff being able to at least keep up with Bryson's B game? It gives us, hope that he's not going to win every tournament by 10 at least. Right, Sal?
Yeah, and I thought, so what I did in Showdown, it was really more of a leverage, just didn't really get any Matt Wolff, and I guess just ended up being lucky. But what Wolff had going for him the first 3 rounds, he was leading the field, and that's normally what's going to happen when you're up 3 strokes in putting, but he was just unconscious. He was, I think it was 9.7 strokes gained with his putter in the first 3 rounds. He didn't have anything catastrophic happen in the final round with the putter. Just he didn't gain, and that ended up getting him. So yeah, it was early, right? It was right away. He ends up going bogey, and then Bryson goes birdie, and the gap's already closed. So yeah, I thought it was good to see Wolff kind of come back. He just blundered a little bit too much early, and Bryson just kept piling on, birdied out to end it.
Jeff, are you buying into a resurgent Matt Wolff, or was this just a perfect situation of golf course conditions and a culmination of maybe a couple things going right and making a few putts?
Yeah, I think it's I don't know if Matt Wolff has necessarily turned a corner or anything. I just think this is the type of player he is. There's a ton of talent within his body, so to speak, and we saw it in college, and he hasn't found the consistency that the other players have had. I don't think his swing is as repeatable. Look, I'm not an expert in that area, but it's pretty obvious that he's struggled with consistency more than guys like Morikawa and Hovland at this point. But upside-wise, we know what's in there, man. I mean, it's crazy. He can destroy those par fives when his approaches get on it, and he doesn't miss the greens too much. He doesn't have to rely on that short game, which is still a real issue for him. And the putter gets hot, obviously. So ton of talent in Matt Wolff, a guy who's obviously been very clutch, just as an amateur as well. But I was very interested. I took a long look at him, pre-week, because you just figured this is the kind of event he popped up at last year, after a couple missed cuts.
In the same week too. Don't forget that.
Exactly. Yeah. So the summer, weaker field, just a course where it was pretty easy just to smash the par fives as well.
Yep.
And he did it again. So I think right now that's kind of his wheelhouse. Maybe just a little bit easier scoring where there's an extra par five or something. You can take a look, but yeah, consistency wise, I'm not sure if this is going to lead to a big breakthrough. I still think he's figuring things out, but obviously still just a talented player where wherever you can get him at that price in a weaker field like this, probably worth taking a shot.
Yeah, definitely. It saved my week. It's a great point. We'll get into my losing week at DFS, even having all these guys. 125 to 1 on Wolff on a weak field. I'm going to bet it every time. And it's weird because Wolff competed in the 2 years he was in college. He was step for step with Morikawa and Hovland. And Morikawa and Hovland have showed some extremely good consistency on the PGA Tour. And outside of the win, we really haven't seen it with Wolff. So interested to see where he goes from here with the second place. All right, last one that I'm going to come up with before we came on the air today. We had the news that the Memorial, which is next week, is not going to have any fans. They were supposed to. Pretty clear with everything going on with COVID that was going to be the case. So I have a couple questions for you guys. 1, do you care? 2, do you care if Tiger doesn't play and because there's no fans? And 3, do you care if there's fans at the Masters or the Ryder Cup? I know maybe a couple of questions in there. Sal, I'm going to let you have first crack at this.
Yeah, so I guess I've been the one to say, I guess I don't really care as much. I know the Ryder Cup's a little bit different, but either way, if I'm just watching at home, I don't care. But I know that the golfers, they're going to care, especially for the Ryder Cup. But when it comes to the Memorial next week, I don't think it's going to matter too much. They're used to it at this point. There's supposed to be some fans at half capacity. I don't know the exact percentage of it. And now they're just going with none. So I don't think it's going to matter as much. I guess from the beginning, my stance on it was okay, there's not going to be, for guys who are inexperienced, there's not going to be as much pressure coming down on Sunday. And the guys that we just saw, Matt Wolff and Brendan Todd, they're not inexperienced. They have wins, but not as experienced as the guys who are dominant in Dustin Johnson and Bryson chasing them. So I guess that window, or that theory at least right now, isn't floating. So yeah, I don't really know what to make of it other than that. So I'm not going to say there's too much of a difference outside of maybe the Ryder Cup.
Hey, last one, just because I got to bring it up, Sal, before I go over to you, Jeff. If Tiger comes out and says, I'm not playing until they're fans, does that change your stance?
Yeah, then that'll kind of mess some things up. So first of all, I want to see Tiger. It's I don't even remember the last time I saw him. And then selfishly from our own industry standpoint, Tiger is going to be a 15% boost to everything that happens from a content standpoint. But no, I want to see Tiger play. I want to see how he is. I actually thought that obviously COVID hasn't been good for anybody, but in terms of how he was trending towards Masters, we didn't know if he was going to be fully healthy, and who knows if he would have even played. He was starting to back out of some tournaments because of that. So it seems like he should be fully healthy, and I want to see what it looks like.
Jeff, how about you? We'll start off with the Tiger portion of it, and then you can go on from the rest.
I mean, Tiger is the only reason I'd really care if fans came back early or not. I mean, exactly. if he's going to skip tournaments because there's no fans, which I hope he doesn't do, I would definitely start to care. I still think, with the majors coming up, he's got to return soon and get at least a tournament under his belt for the PGA. Although we have seen him take a lot of time off and just not care about that. So, yeah. Obviously, a unique athlete can get himself prepared, and he's taking care of his body right now. But that would be kind of the only reason I care about it. I've been a proponent of just saying they need to cancel the Ryder Cup this year. It's not worth it. They're not going to have full capacity of fans. Why not just wait a year? I mean, it's not an event where there's prize money at stake. I know it's prestigious. I know the guys want to do it, and there's players with points, and they might not get a chance if they push it or whatever, but they just need to push it at this point. I mean, there's already a congested golf schedule in the fall, so let's do the majors this year, and let's just push the Ryder Cup, because it'll be, it's one of those events where, to me, that is the event where you need fans. That really pumps things up. Because there's no money at stake, and there's no world golf points and stuff like that. That's what gets people pumped up is the fan interaction. So I've always said from the start of this thing, just push it a year. I mean, it's going to be a way better experience when the fans are back. So.
No doubt about it. I totally agree. And I mean, we're in unprecedented times, right? We've heard that word used a million times. Why not just move it back here and do the first ever President's Cup and Ryder Cup in the same year and make it a drinking thing? I mean, I would be thrilled as a golf fan. Listen, I love the Ryder Cup, and the fact that DraftKings is now offering contests for it, it's a double whammy. Of course, I love watching it. I would have just as much fun, if not more, watching 3 teams go at it next year for the first inaugural whatever cup you want to call it. And it's not like the internationals can't field a squad. They almost beat us last year. So it's not like, they'll be too far behind the 8 ball. They've got players like Adam Scott and Jason Day, who we'll talk about here in a little bit, that can certainly go out and compete on a world-class field like some jam as well. So pretty much agree with all of your guys' takes there. I don't care about fans. I haven't cared about fans. I would care about it at the Ryder Cup. I don't think they should have it without it. And Tiger Woods better come back next week. If he doesn't, then I'm definitely going to start to get nervous. I'm not going to lie. There was a tweet that put out with his swing. He was playing at Seminole, and it looked fine. So he's not unhealthy. So that's at least a good sign. All right, let's move into our DFS review before we go into the Workday Charity Open. We like to just give a quick little tidbit about last week, how some of the DFS pros played, how we played, and go from there. So we're going to first start off with the top 10 scorers and ownerships from last week. Just going to go over it quickly and ask you guys to tell me what was the most surprising on the ownership side, because on the point side, there's always going to be somebody surprising. But quickly here, running down the points list. Sorry, I'm just pulling it up. Bryson at 146, Wolf 132, Kisner, Hadwin, Hatton. No surprises there. Well, maybe actually I shouldn't say none. Kisner is definitely a surprise. Hadwin and Hatton were playing good. Ryan Armour was also playing good. Seb Straka, Danny Willett, Troy Merritt, and Chris Kirk are the top 10 DK point getters. Ownership-wise, Bryson DeChambeau, Victor Hovland, Adam Hadwin, Ty Hatton, Tony Finau, Doc Redman, Patrick Reed, Snedeker, Will Gordon, and Sung J.M. So, Jeff, let's go to you first on the ownership. Did anything come in surprising to you there in the top 10? For me, right off the bat, Will Gordon, I thought it was going to be 10%. 16%, 7th highest on the board, or 8th highest. That really surprised me.
Yeah, I mean, that one jumped up for me too. Will Gordon didn't even flash across my mind much last week. I feel like Snedeker got built up because some of his Donald Ross performance. So that didn't shock me too much. I think Hadwin getting up to be the 3rd highest golfer surprised me a little. I mean, Hadwin's been solid, but I didn't think that people had that much confidence in him. And I thought it was a good play. But, I think that's generally just a sharp move kind of by, the public, whoever you want to call it. Yeah. And then, I think Doc Redman probably is the other surprise for me. Again, it's not that Doc Redman hasn't been playing well, but it got such a big boost in salary. I really felt like that would have driven his ownership down in the 12% range. It's kind of where I was expecting to fall. So seeing him up there, again, people just playing the recent form, which is fine. I mean, sometimes just riding guys until the wheels fall off is good. But that surprised me a little bit too, Redmond.
Yeah. Sal, any other surprises other than those guys, or come out pretty much how you thought it might?
Yeah, I saw that projections-wise, Brand Snedeker was projected to be one of the highest on the field, and that's what he ends up coming out. I didn't really see it. I was never on him the whole week, so I guess that was just a natural pivot. And then I guess maybe more encouraging, Bryson staying in the 11K range, remaining below 30%. I was expecting to see a 33, 30 to 35%. So if anything, that's maybe encouraging for, if not this week or another week when a top dog looks like to play.
For sure. So that's the quick review. Now we can go into our lineups. I believe I have on here. Going back, just making sure we're on Jeff first. So, Jeff, walk me through your $200 lineup that you put in last week. Looks like you built around Matsuyama. You went back to him again. That ended up pretty much paying off, for the most part. And then Jason Day, 9-footer to make the cut. Actually looked like he was playing pretty well. Missed it. Benson Hoot could get nothing going after the first 6 holes. It looks like then you went Richie Werenski at 1.4%. That was a great pick. And Kurt Kitayama, looks like you went him over Eric Van Rooyen, but it looks like you wouldn't have had a choice either or there. So walk me through. I still like the Jason Day play there. I know you told me you can't quit him, but he should have made that cut, right?
I still don't even feel bad about playing Jason Day at that price in this field. And like you said, he had 2 10-foot birdie putts in the last couple holes to make the cut on the number, which is what Matsuyama did. And look what Matsuyama ended up. So I feel like got a little bit unlucky there for sure. My whole thing was, again, it was either at the start of the week, I knew it was either I'm just going all in on Bryson or I'm fading him. And I decided to fade him, and I also decided to just pull back a little bit. So other than this lineup, I didn't play too much. And I just went, obviously I liked Hideki. I really liked Hadwin, like I said. And Werenski was a guy who really hit the ball good last week. He's got a good Donald Ross course history. Those 3 picks, I'm absolutely love. And I kind of went back and forth between more of like a Hovland and a couple other scrubs build, and versus this one where I played a couple of like I call them the Euro Tour studs, and Bezuidenhout and Kitayama. And I knew this one was this had a chance of just being ugly. And it, again, it kind of ended up with the 2 guys who, again, it felt like I was making a Euro Tour lineup, just not coming through. Bezuidenhout we have a small sample on him, but he had been good lately, gaining strokes in approaches and putting. And that's what really kind of lent me towards this build. Kitayama was a guy who obviously qualified with a hot round on Monday. And, being a West Coast guy, that kind of leaned me towards him as well. He can really destroy par 5. He's got really good length for being such a small dude, but he kind of fell apart early in his first round too. And he just never got it back. So both of them, again, we have small samples playing on the PGA. I kind of feel like I probably just got sucked into that hole. And again, I probably should have just taken some of the deeper value with the more proven PGA guys. But again, it was a week where I was fading Bryson playing lower stakes than normal. And I just felt like, I liked where I was with Day. So fit in these 2 AK guys with good upside and talent at least and see where it goes. But, not the way it worked out.
Well, hey, listen, I went on Kitayama on FanDuel. I think I had 95 to 100%. So I fell into that trap a little bit as well. Another trap that I fell into, and I didn't think it was a trap, was Tom Hoge. It looks like Sal on your side, when we switch over to your lineup here, we take away the Kevin Na. Let's just take him away because we know that when we roster him, we've got that withdrawal aspect of him, but we know we're going to get low ownership always. Looked like Tom Hoge was the only one that kind of set you back here, Sal. Looks like Lanto Griffin did exactly what you said he was going to do on the show. Harold Varner honestly couldn't putt. He played well. He had a bunch of chances. Sung J M did what he was supposed to. Tony Finau, a good weekend. Just tough on the Tom Hoge's part. What were you dissatisfied with him, Sal? When did you see it going wrong for him? For me, I think I saw in like the first 6 holes, nothing was going.
Yeah, I think it was like by hole 9 on Thursday or something. I just kept checking in and nothing was sinking. So my final decision in this lineup was, the whole idea behind it was I had a lot of Bryson in like MME 20 max and 3 max single entry higher stakes stuff. I pretty much just went to the 9 and 7K range for the most part. Lanto 6,800, but I faded the 10K, not getting to Bryson, and the 8K range. It was the decision to make Sungjae Im over Hovland. Didn't end up paying out, but it ended up just making it more unique. I thought the build was fine. The knot sucked. He just was terrible, but the back obviously factored into that. And then the last decision was Burns versus Tommy Hoge, and that didn't end up working out. But yeah, he just didn't seem like anything was dropping. The reason I play him was he ends up making fairways very easily on a course where it's easy to do so. And just in terms of birdie or better, look good. Burns, the reasons I was going to go to him was the par 5s on this course. I think he was like rank 6 in terms of that distance, and obviously a great putter. So that was the main factor. Yeah, Varner on I think it was Friday, he had like an eagle and 4 birdies, and he wasn't even putting. Like he could have just exploded on Friday. He had a pretty good round in general, but could have exploded. But yeah, Finau ends up, I think I tweeted back at you, I thought Finau's bomb to get through the cut might actually propel this lineup if somebody was going to make a run. He started to make a run on Saturday, but it wasn't enough. The leaders were just so far in front.
Yeah, they were, and it's a course where it is tough to pick up, strokes. I mean, he shot 600, and I think he only picked up 1 or 2 on the leaders. So yeah, that'll happen. Let's go look at the Millionaire Maker lineup from the winner of last week. And before we came on the show, I mentioned to Jeff that this was the first time that I think I've ever seen the 3 kind of, we'll call them corollary guys in the lineup. And as you can see here, Danny Willett, Adam Hadwin, and Sepp Straka shot a combined 17 under on Sunday. They all went bogey free and all had at least 6 birdies, obviously. Just an insane run for him to go from probably what was like in the mid-thousands to first place in the Millionaire Maker. And not only that, he did it on the last putt where Ryan Armour missed that 3-footer on 18 or 4-footer. Brought Ryan Armour into a tie for 4th, bringing Hadwin and Willett up to a tie from 5th to 4th, giving him 4 more points and winning. Just absolutely insane. Sal, I'll start with you. Have you ever seen anything like that before with a guy running so good on Sunday where he literally probably went from the mid-thousands to first place?
Yeah, exactly. Like Willett, coming into the cut, Willett was just a guy who was like a bottom feeder. And then I saw on Saturday, he had some splits in terms of like his first 2 days where you just knew something was going to change with his putting. Otherwise, he was going to have like one of the worst finishes in a tournament in a while. And he changed it a little bit. And then coming into Sunday, he just got red hot as well. Same thing for Straka as well. Like, you're getting a miscut or probably like this exact finish out of Straka. And yeah, those two things to really pop off for you, especially heading into the weekend where you already felt good about Wolf and you're running hot there. And you run hot for $1 million and it works out. And then an extra 25 grand just for bonus.
Yeah, right. It looks like I'm sorry, Jordan, behind the glass there. It looks like I forgot to go over my lineup. But we'll go into that a little bit later. Geoff, thoughts on the Millie? We were speaking a little bit before. I mean, just an insane run to win it.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's obviously what everything. It's like hitting runner, obviously, or whatever, however you want to equate it. But
yeah, good point. Yeah.
I mean, Bryson, Hadwin, Wolf were kind of the key plays this week. Hovland and Matsuyama was in the second place lineup. So Hovland and Matsuyama were kind of interchangeable just from a points perspective. Obviously, Hovland was cheaper, but getting Straka and Willett in there. Just insane. I mean, look, Straka is a guy who does have upside. When his ball striking is on, he generally like challenges for top 10. So it's not that far out of the realm. And then Willett is just kind of, it was like a cheaper version of the Euro guys I threw in my lineup. So I guess I kind of get it from that perspective. But yeah, just an insane run. And, to win or lose $1 million on like a 3-foot right armor putt, man, I can't believe it. But, that's the way these work out. They come down. Such big fields, they come down to the final play or the final putt every week. So, yeah,
absolutely, totally insane. All right, let's move into our pro review here, and we're going to start off with our own Alex Awesemo Baker this week, and pull up me on the screen as well. Interesting here for me this week, as you guys can see on the screen, I did I think like 70 entries in the Millionaire Maker this week. 94% of them had Bryson. 50% of them had Wolf, 30% of them had Hadwin. 15% had Hadwin, 30% had Hovland. However, when you look at the next four guys on my list, 25%, 24%, 18, and 18 all missed the cut. So I could not find that sixth guy in. I had a lot of 5 of 6s with Bryson and Wolf and even Burns and Hovland. Just couldn't find that sixth guy in this week. Switching over to Alex on the other side, it looks like he kind of had the same problem as me. He hit the top end, maybe a little bit too high on Patrick Reed. Looks like he had the same problem as Eric Van Rooyen as I did. Looks like he bit into the Brandt Snedeker a little bit. But overall, got really good leverage on Ricky. Ended up playing a little bit of the field on Bryson. So quick thoughts. Geoff, why don't you go first? How the heck do I lose going 94% Bryson and half of Wolf?
I don't know. Like that's crazy. Yeah. It just goes to show you though, you really do to get these big weeks in GPPs. I mean, sometimes it's not just about hitting the guys at the top. I mean, you've got to get exposure to value plays that come through. So when you take an approach like this and you're going, 18% on guys like Hoagie, Wise, Munoz, I mean, you need them to come through. And it's not like I don't think that this is a good strategy, your player pool percentages. It's just, it's a little bit higher variance as well. It makes it a little bit higher variance, which is, as opposed to saying going half of those percentages on those players. So, but I mean, if you'd even got one of those guys through, it probably would have changed things dramatically, I'd imagine.
Yep.
And the one thing I will say about I really like the strategy with Bryson you took. It was just all or nothing. When you get a big favorite like that, I really feel like that's the way to do it. Even if Bryson hadn't won, I mean, again, he wasn't being, it wasn't going to be like another stud that beat him. It was going to be the low-end guy like Wolf. So even in that scenario where Wolf wins and Bryson finishes second, Bryson's going to pay off. So I really like that strategy. I think, like I said from the top, for me, it was either an all or nothing Bryson week. So yeah, it's a little disappointing. I look at this, I'm like, yeah, I really like the way he played it, but it just, again, that was a tough range too in the 7K. I know Sal was bringing up Hoagie, Burns was interesting, Lanto, but there was a ton of other interesting guys like Stanley and Wise who just didn't pay off too. So yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, Jordan, let's click to the next ones. And Sal, I gotta ask you again. Now, the guys that I have on here, Brick75 and McLovin, and listen, McLovin's one of the best players out there. This one scratched my head even more. He only had 15% for his top guy owned. I don't see how that can ever win. A strategy like that can ever win. It just makes
we have that. Was that similar last week, right? Wasn't it something small top?
Yeah, very small top. So as you can see here, a little higher, 23% on web, but everything was so small. It just makes no sense to me why he's going on that strategy. Maybe he can come on the show if he watches the show, or if you guys are friends with him. It just makes no sense to me. So talk on that for a second, why you think he's doing it, or why you would do it, or would you never?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the way that I would do it, at least if it was golf wise, would be to capture a good amount of, I guess you can call it bottom feeders, or at least like gravitate a lot of your ownership towards those guys and then distribute it amongst like a bunch of 6K guys. And that's when you start to get balanced out more. But then even then, usually you would expect somebody like you see with Awesemo 41% of rookies, somebody to pop off a little bit into like the 30% range. Like, I don't even know. I think I said last week, like, I don't know how you naturally get this. I think you might have to constrain it. Anytime like I've ran something, it's somebody's popping up, somebody adds to some sort of value that's going to pop off, especially if it is like the lower range. So it almost seems like there's definitely like constraints in here being put on for a reason, like consciously making this decision to do it. I don't know though, there could be like some sort of strategy or at least theory that he's trying to get ahead of the curve with. And yeah, that's something that I would like to learn and probably study more on it. Like look back on how long he's been doing this.
Yeah, it's crazy. And Coolers in our chat here, it just mentions it doesn't seem like there's enough combinations, permutations for high equity win golfers. So maybe I'll ask him, maybe if I can find him, I'll ask him maybe to come on the show for a segment and talk to us about it, because I'm definitely interested on why he does it. My quick thoughts on three guys. Nobody could get away from Patrick Reed except for me. No chance of playing Patrick Reed in the 10K range when he's not in great form. And Scotty Scheffler seemed to be a problem for most as well. So that kind of sums up the Rocket Mortgage. Excuse me there. So now we'll turn our attentions to the Workday Charity Open. And I already mentioned it is a kind of a throw-in event. But still, we're playing for $1 million again on DraftKings. So if you are not already an Awesemo Plus member, of course, it's a great time to become such. You can get all of this week's content from us at Awesemo for this week's PGA DFS slate for only $8.95. This includes full access to Awesemo's leading golfer projections, ownership projections, and top golfer tool, and so much more. There's never a better time for PGA DFS. So get in the game today. Also, there's a fight island this week. This isn't, I believe, the only Millionaire Maker out there, or it might not be a Millionaire Maker for the fight island. But if you want access to Awesemo Plus MMA monthly pass, which is going to include this fight and a bunch more, use the promo code ISLAND at checkout to get the pass for just $20. That's a 33% off the original price. This includes full access to Awesemo's leader fighter projections, ownership projections, and top fighter tool. MMA DFS is just maybe like a half a step below PGA DFS right now in terms of their offering slates. So use it today and step into the octagon with the exclusive offer. It is valid through July 11th. So some pretty good stuff going on there. Now let's go on to the Workday Charity Open. We have got just maybe about half of the world's top 20, so a better field than last week. It is the first of 2 weeks at Muirfield Village Golf Club. So this is the time when the PGA Tour decided to get everybody else a start and put them all in Dublin, Ohio for the 2 weeks. Now, we'll go into the course a little bit. I'll break it down, so go quickly through it. The base course, this is what normally it's set up for the Memorial Tournament, which is going to be next week. It's a par 72, 7,400 yards. It's got 13 water hazards, 78 bunkers, bent greens, decent size, not too small, not too big. Plenty of history here, and there's 4 par 5s, 4 par 3s, and 10 par 4s. Now, what I wanted to mention was this week the PGA Tour has already announced the rough length is going to be about half of what it normally is, and the green speeds are going to be 2 notches below what it normally is. So for all those golf fanatics, the stimp meter will run about an 11 to an 11.5 this week. Next week, it'll run about a 13 to a 13.5. It just means the greens are going to be much faster next week than they will this week. Now that all that noise is kind of out of the way, Sal, why don't you tell us a little bit about the fairways and how this course plays?
Yeah, so it's going to be similar to last week, at least from the fairways, in terms of you're going to be able to hit right around 70%. I think maybe 8 to 10% higher than the tour average. So that was very similar to what last week's numbers were. Last week was like 72%. Scrambling is going to be a little bit more important here. So your greens and regulation percentage last week, again, you can hit fairways, you can hit the greens. It was a birdie fest. This week, that's where it's going to get a little bit more difficult. It's going to be below the tour average. Scrambling is going to be a lot more important this week. And then what you had last year was just over 63%. Of a scrambling average, which is the top 10 hardest. So yeah, I think pretty much what you want to do here is you're still going to be able to hit the fairways. It's just after that, your second shot, once you start to get into the rough, depending on how they're going to change that, like you said, will get a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, sure. And we've seen plenty of really solid players win here in the last couple of years with Patrick Cantlay and Bryson DeChambeau. But Geoff, plenty of other guys, not just, the elite studs have won here. We've got Jason Duffner and others. Who else can play good here?
Yeah, I mean, Sal mentioned that, the fairways are fairly easy to hit. And then you obviously, you need to hit a lot of greens, and the greens are a little bit harder. So it does play into just players who are just good iron players. I mean, Duffner being one of them. Lingworth, when he won, gained like over 6 strokes with his iron, and then just putted well too. So it's not necessarily what you'd call a bomber's course. I mean, we have Cantlay, you have right here written down pre-hole Bryson, like when he wasn't smashing at 330 every drive. And then, a guy like McGirt and Lingworth obviously have come through as well. They're a bit more of like long shot winners. I wouldn't read too much into that, but they also struck their irons well that week. And then you have consistent ball strikers like Matsuyama, again, a lot of greens. A guy like Byung Hanan has done well, who's a pretty consistent ball striker and also very good around the greens. And then Matt Kuchar is one of the most consistent records here too. So it's really what you characterize as like an all-around course. I think it does bring various styles into play. And I'm not sure how the easier course is going to necessarily make it this week, if it's just going to lead to bombers just being able to destroy it or what. But that's how it's played in the past, where it's kind of brought different styles in. And if you just have a solid week throughout the bag and you handled the greens well and just missed the blowups, because that's the one thing I will say about this event. It does tend to make a couple really good players look bad every year, like guys who just aren't ready for the course. So I might be more of a next week thing, but that's my only other kind of note about Memorial, or Muirfield Village, I should say.
Yeah, and Greg in our chat just mentioned Kuchar loves this place. I mean, there's a couple of guys like Ben An, who's had a chance to win here, Matsuyama, who has won here and done really well. So it really does. It rewards guys that are good with their approaches, but also crafty around the greens. The green complexes here are very difficult, trying to be reminiscent of Augusta National. This is a Jack Nicklaus designed course, and he really tried to, at least his best, mimic what he likes about Augusta in this course, and you can certainly see it come out. So it's a fun course. It's a really well-designed one, too. I'm excited to go out and see a full field event here. I expect the winning score this week to approach the 20 under par again range, just because of the rough and greens being much less hard. Now, if they are able to do such a quick turnaround and make those green speeds a 13 next week, which they can do, and if they can allow that rough to grow out a couple of days and get it longer, I suspect we'll get back to the mid-teen winners at the Memorial. But this week, definitely want to look at birdie or better as well. So that's a perfect time to lead in to our first clicks and our top betting options that we have seen. Odds just came out a couple of hours ago, and so did salaries. So sorry, Jordan, behind. I kind of went through the Muirfield Village topic pretty quickly there, moving on to first click. So I apologize. Now, looking at the first clicks, I mentioned on Twitter, and this is kind of one of those unquantifiable things today. But when Brooks Koepka starts to chipper-chapper and starts to go in on people, normally the play is already there and it's a lagging indicator, or the play is coming and it's a future indicator. So for me here, it seems like we're in a bit of both. He's been starting to chirp right as we started to come back. He had that tie fourth at the RBC Heritage. He turned up the chirping with Nick Faldo. It's continued here now over the last couple of weeks, even though he had a withdraw. 17-1, I thought that was a pretty good price on Koepka. Geoff, I'm going to turn it over to you first for your first clicks and what you thought about my Koepka comment.
Yeah, look, at this price, I think I made the comment at the Travelers. Anytime you can kind of get Brooks Koepka at 20-1 or better, you should take it. But realistically, we're getting a bit of a weaker field here, and people are kind of starting to get knowledge that Brooks is really close. Like 17-1, I got no problem with that. I think he's around Matsuyama's range. I know I kind of like Hideki as well, but I'm going to take Brooks over Hideki here. 10 times out of 10 right now. I got no problem with that. I will say this. The dude I clicked first this week was Spieth. I've seen some chatter that, maybe the easier course will help him. I mean, he's been T8 and T2 in birdies made. He was T8 in birdies made at Travelers. He was T2 in birdies made His first week back, I think he's getting close. He's improved his strokes gain approach three tournaments in a row. He's got the crafty around the green game we just talked about. I think the easier Muirfield might be better. And I'll throw this one out, Jason, too. He has gained strokes. He has gained 2 or more strokes off the tee at Muirfield Village in 5 of 7 appearances. I don't know why. He never does that, but he apparently likes it here. I think this could, I really like the setup. I like the price of 45 to 1. I was thinking I might get like 33 or something. So that was my first click. I'll probably go with one more dude. I might even go with Brooks as well to add to that because I really do like Brooks, but Spieth was my first click this week, and I do not bet Spieth. And I will add this too. I almost never get Spieth right, so maybe it's just a good time to fade him. But
Sal, he is really playing into my heartstrings right now. Are you following him in?
Just lower on the odds is Patrick Reed. I think 33 to 1 is where I first saw him and got him at. He's at 30 to 1 in like plenty of spots. It's really just a number and value. There's a thing, it comes down to, is his putter going to gain strokes or not just to make the cut? It's the last 4 times that he hasn't gained strokes putting, which have been since the Sony. He has 3 missed cuts and then he finished 51st. So if he's gaining strokes with the putter, you're going to have at least a chance because he'll make the weekend. But that's what I want here. Like you said earlier, it's going to emphasize a little bit more than usual because of all the changes. Birdie or better. He's going to come into this as a top 3 putter, at least if you look at the last 20 to 50 rounds. So I ended up taking that. It's just a number, the value. I like the 33. I think especially a lot of those guys in the teens are pushing down pretty much all the 30 range. And then Gary Woodland is everywhere pretty much 35 to 1. But I think it was bet 365. He opened at 55 to 1. So that was just like an auto bet. Probably, he should be around the 35 to 40. His form is not great right now. We're just 2 appearances away from him on Sunday in contention and blowing up. And that's what he did the week after that as well, heading into the weekend. So I think it's one bad round. And really, honestly, it's like one bad hole for Woodland right now. It's blowing up a lot of his stats. And then at the end of the day, it was just a crazy number of 55 to 1. So those are the first 2 outrights, at least, that I clicked. And then there's like a bunch of guys after that just seem interesting at their numbers, but not tempting enough, like a Morikawa, Sungjae Im, even a Mark Leishman.
Yeah, definitely some interesting values. And I think that's a great lead into our top 20 values, which it's not going to be as good as it was last week because the field was less strong. And obviously with a stronger field, there's better players in it, so you can't get as good values. But one of the values that I thought was way down the line, I mean, we've seen this guy play pretty good. I'm not, nothing great this year, don't get me wrong. So this is not something that I'm going out and blindly doing. But Keith Mitchell at 400 to 1, and I think that makes his top 20s. I'm just going to confirm here. I believe it's 20 to 1. I'm gonna go check it real quick. That was one of my first clicks. And then I saw also who was infuriating last week. Infuriating last week because he lost the all rounds under 70 and the bogey-free round that Coolers just brought up in the chat there. With Sam Burns, he's longer odds than Aaron Wise, who didn't even make the cut last week. So I thought maybe a little bit of value there. So Keith Mitchell, 11 to 1 on the top 20. And Sam Burns is, I believe he's 7.5 to 1 on the top 20. So those were my top 20 values to start off. I suspect the course is going to play relatively similar to last week. So I do like Burns in that regard. Sal, how about you? You just mentioned a couple of guys. So did you go ahead and bet them on the top 20s or just looking at them at other bets?
Yeah, I didn't bet them top 20s. I just really like the outright value on them. I don't even like the actual chances like DraftKings wise or anything like that. It's just the actual number getting them long term. But I like Sam Burns a lot. I like the call there. I didn't even know that he was 750. I was looking at the odds board. I didn't even go down like extremely low and start looking at those guys too much. But yeah, he just gonna get like a hot putter on the weekend. Like I was playing him in Showdown and it seemed like the day was going to come and it would just be a lukewarm, like 3 under type of a day. He golfed fine, just couldn't get extremely hot. But yeah, going down here, I think Burns is fine. And then also I saw a couple of names. The one main one was Norlander, and he's just really coming on as of late. 3 straight contests. I think he gained tee to green at this point. Same thing with approach, which is not something that those two things paired up. The putter is going to be an issue, but if those things are going to stick a little bit, he does anything with the putter. Like he finished T12 losing almost 3 strokes with the putter this past week at the Rocket Mortgage. So he's 550 to 1. And then down there in the exact same range, 650 to 1 is Cameron Tringale. He ended up showing some good form after withdrawing and then missing a cut. He ended up coming back I think these courses kind of set up nicely for him. And then if you want to go the total opposite end of it, I actually like the value on like a -110 Justin Thomas for a top 20. I think that's pretty good if you want to be laying like a 10-1 odds or whatever he's going to end up getting down to 11-1 right now. So that's on the totally opposite stream, but I like that.
Yeah, Geoff, how about you?
Yeah, if I was going a little bit closer to the top, I would probably go with like a Hadwin or a Joel Dahman, just to, get them a plus money. They're both playing really solid right now. I think if I was going to choose between one for a top 20, it'd probably be Hadwin, but Dahman's playing really well, and you might be able to get a better price on him. I don't have their exact odds coming up, but again, you're talking like plus 200 or something. Those are good investments, I feel like, over the long term. And again, they're not going to be as volatile. So I like both those players, but we're talking, longer odds. The first guy that stuck out to me was Henley, Russell Henley. So he's gained over 8 strokes with his irons in 2 of his last 3 starts. He was T6 at Memorial in his debut back in 2013. He's made the cut last 2 times here. I always kind of refer to him as like mini Spieth because they have a similar game. They can just get red hot with their irons and putter. And I just think that this easier setup might, if Russ lost 4 strokes with his putter at Travelers and still was like top 40. If he just is field average with the putter and keeps hitting his irons like he is, he'll have a real shot at hitting a top 20. So you should be able to get like, plus 500 or something there. And then Sal brought up Norlander. That was the other dude I'll probably check out. He's been hitting it ridiculous. He generally can be a pretty solid all-around player. Sometimes can have really bad weeks with the putter, but that should rebound at some point. So I have no problem taking a shot with him, especially if you can get him at like plus 800 or better.
Yeah, it's 550 on Norlander and 450 on Henley for the top 20. So maybe DraftKings is listening to the industry talk. Norlander a little bit at 550 seems a little hasty. So we do have DraftKings pricing, so we'll transition into there and kind of give our first reactions. And I put out a note earlier saying that I'm really happy and impressed that DraftKings has really taken an interest in their golf product. Now, granted, it's one of the only things on the market, but we're getting quality offerings. We're getting quality pricing, in my opinion, at least. One of the things that stuck out to me, though, this week, Justin Thomas coming in above Rahm, even though Justin Thomas missed the cut last time out, has a little bit more inconsistency. Geoff, what do you make of that decision by DK to go Thomas over Rahm and only price him 11-1, which is not that high?
I think it's probably, a little bit factoring Justin Thomas's course history here. He's got a couple top 10s.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yep.
And then, the other thing is, Justin Thomas has a win on this season. He's been a way more prolific winner. I think probably just factoring in also the popularity. I think Justin Thomas is generally one of the most popular bets out there. So it's a little bit of the Tiger factor with Justin Thomas. You're getting such a popular player. Where not that Rahm isn't popular, but I think, if you're comparing the two, Thomas moves the needle a little bit more. So I think that probably worked in Thomas's favor. And realistically, there's only $200 separating the two. So it's not a big difference, but I think those are the things that probably move the needle for Thomas this week. Also, it's one missed cut. If you're really going and doing a statistical dive, Thomas is still the leader in the last 50 rounds in strokes gained tee degree in this field. So, that factors into it too. So I'm okay with it. I probably would have liked to see maybe like 11-3, a little bit higher, but like you said, I think the pricing is pretty good this week too. So,
Sal Cantlay slides in at number 3 behind those two guys. Great course history, obviously winning in a top 4. What do you make of the top 3 on the board? Do you have one inclination over the other, or do you think it's just pretty fair at this point?
Yeah, I think I like Cantlay the most. And since he won here last year, at least at the Memorial last year, I'm hoping a guy who's always like 25% owned doesn't spike up to that with all these other guys around him and a pretty top heavy field. But I think he's playing the most consistent. Like you said, you're having a ton of missed cuts out of JT. He's either finishing top 10 or missing the cut. Rahm's just kind of been middling, nothing crazy, not going low any rounds, and just kind of finishes T30. But yeah, I think Cantlay, we have just one event since he's come back, and he looked good at the Travelers. Everything looked good. He got really hot with the putter, but nothing was catastrophic. He probably still finishes top 20 no matter what, even if the putter wasn't as hot as it was. So I think he's my favorite. He's just playing the most consistent. I think he's wildly underrated. And in this field with all those guys up there, I do see sort of like ownership just being maybe like JT gets 19%, a bunch of guys at like the 15, 16% mark. At least that's what I'm hoping for Cantley, hoping the course history doesn't spike him up, but he's probably the guy like the most. And then from the top two guys, Rom and JT, I'd probably lean JT if anything. I just think he's showing an ability to just go lower right now, whether it's from tee to green or just finishing. And Rom just seems to be not having the ability to just finish putts, whatever it is, and get low in rounds, and at least string together some birdie streaks and really get low.
Yeah, and I of course, I'll always be a Cantlay fan, but I will say I feel like for Cantlay's game, he's gaining strokes in places that other people are losing them. And that's a stat that they brought up about Morikawa when he was in contention last time, about him gaining strokes versus the field on holes that the rest of the field is losing on. Cantlay is that kind of thing. And I feel like the conditions of the golf course better suit him next week. So I'm almost hoping like, hey, maybe we have a little bit of a letdown this week. We get a stronger field, a similar price at the Memorial. That's when I'll jump on him. Of course, I'm never going to fade Patrick Cantlay. He's one of my favorite players, and obviously the course sets him. So I think we get a win out of him in the next 2 weeks, no doubt about it. I just think he's ready to do that. To round out the 10s, we got Matsuyama, who comes in finally off of what I'll say is a good week. He almost missed the cut there, but got through, and then he shows you what he can do over the weekend. Of course, Xander Schauffele also up above 10K. Would you rather play any of these three below guys over the top three guy above, including salary, Sal, at first look, where you're like, oh, I'm definitely going to Xander here. I don't even need to play Rom or JT.
Yeah, honestly, I think Xander would be that guy, and he's just another guy who's been consistent. It's like one piece of his game doesn't click. Normally, it's been just the putter and the around the green play. Even that, just historically, is not going to be anything too bad, and then you can feel good about it coming in. But tee to green, you can rely on him. The approach play as of late has been going, but it's nothing major. Like even when he's struggling on approach, he's still putting up top 20, top 25 performances. So Xander's that guy that I gravitated towards. Hideki did look great. Like he led the field in tee to green Saturday. He was second only to Norlander on Saturday and Sunday into the weekend. So the game was cooking there. That's what you expect out of him, though. It's just that the putter didn't really do much. He did gain like a stroke and a half when he made that huge run on Saturday. So I actually like the form there. Like I like both of those guys. Brooks, I know you mentioned earlier, he's just a guy who's kind of getting left out. Like this range is loaded, and I think that I'd probably go with some combination of, at least early on, Cantlay, Xander, JT, and then Matsuyama, depending on where he's coming in at, because his form does look good right now.
Yeah, Jeff, I know you're a Hideki guy. He was the first guy in your lineup last week, it looked like. Are you going right back there, or is this the week to pivot for you?
I think I'll probably, it's just, again, it's really hard for me to click on Hideki when Brooks is right there at 200 more, especially with the course, I think, being a little bit easier this week. Yep. I think with Brooks, he doesn't have as much experience at Muirfield. I think it's going to favor his game a little bit more. So it wouldn't shock me if this was like the Brooks week where he kind of put it all together, ended up going really low. Again, it's just a $200 difference. He's such a better putter than Matsuyama. Like, yeah, I just don't really want to trust Hideki yet. I think if the conditions get tougher next week, it's probably a better spot for Hideki, who still looks like he's struggling a little bit in certain areas that you just don't see him struggle in. So I'm probably okay doing that. It's not that I necessarily dislike Hideki, but you can go down to Rose, who's got really good experience at Muirfield as well, and save a lot of money and pair him with a guy like Koepka or another one of the big guys. So I'll probably take the salary relief or just pay up for Brooks rather than play Hideki. And I kind of feel the same way about Xander. I might like him. I think better, the tougher conditions, which he actually handled pretty well here last year, is better for Xander. So I'm in on Brooks on this range, as I guess what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and a way that we got some salary relief last week was through Matt Wolff, and he's $1,300 more expensive through some salary bumps now. Tringale is $700 more. Lanto Griffin, sadly, Sal, you're not going to be able to get him below $7,000 this week. Ryan Armour, same thing. Matt Wallace gets a bump. Pat Perez, Sepp Straka, and Luke List. Interesting. And now salary dumps. Patrick Reed back down to the value section after being the third highest priced guy. I'm sure some people like to see that. Roy Sabatini goes from $8,800 to $7,400. He's back in a decent range. Bubba Watson, $1,000 cheaper. Scotty Scheffler, $1,200. Sung J M, $900, and Jason Day, $900 as well. Just want to bring those up. Any of those, besides Jason Day, because I think maybe Jeff, you and I are definitely interested in. Sal, any of those names that got thinking about rostering this week?
Yeah, I mean, I think Sab stands out just because of how much that was, and normally that's sort of a range in that mid-range that you can get some nice value there as even a last guy into your lineup, depending on how you build, if you go a little bit more balanced. And yeah, it's one bad week for a guy who was playing pretty consistent before that. And now you're going to get just no ownership on him and the salary dump. So you're buying low at both spots. So I think that's the first name that probably stands out. Just the amount of money you're saving is pretty nice.
Yeah. Geoff, how about you? Same kind of thought or somebody else that piqued your interest there?
Yeah, I mean, Sabatini is definitely interesting. I would kind of agree. I mean, Scotty Scheffler shot like a 65 on Friday, did he not? I mean,
7 over 7 under.
Yeah. So I don't want to make any proclamations this early in the week, but that's someone I'm definitely going to look into and just make sure everything's good. And it was just like, a kind of one-off a couple